Is it okay if a parent kills their child, but it's bad if a cop shoots somebody? They're both bad. And I don't want to weigh one versus the other, but it's always more anger when it's external, when someone else that's not us hurts us and harms us. Then that's where we put all our attention. But if it's us harming us, just like with Samuel Sharp, the guy that was killed by the Ohio police officers that were here for the RNC, okay? Had those officers said, not our problem, not our city, let's just let them fight it out. And Samuel Sharp is armed with 2 knives, and let's say he went through with it and he did stab the other individual whose name we don't know, because if I was that guy that Samuel Sharp was about to stab, I'd still be running. He's probably like Forrest Gump. He's in Alabama by now. He's just running. Why would he want to stop running? He doesn't know who's trying to kill him. So let's say those Ohio police officers were like, not my city, not my problem. I'll just let them fight it out. And then Samuel Sharp would have killed that other presumably unhoused man. It just would have been another homicide in Milwaukee. We never would have talked about it. But because Ohio police officers saw something in their line of duty, because they were still working as police officers, that would warrant using deadly force, now it's a whole referendum on policing everywhere and the RNC and all the other things. Like, that's the part that is just baffling to me. If it's only black people can kill black people, because then we're just like, oh, this sucks. Bunch of kids shot each other over the weekend. And people are just like, oh, well, we need a curfew.
Well, yes, but numbers and situations aside, Sherwin,
yes,
I think that we should play into the emotions just a little bit, because this video, I don't know if everybody's watched it. I mean, when I say it's the epitome of unnecessary and it does evoke emotion.
It does.
I think it's just something that, yes, the numbers more likely than whatever, but this is something that we need to talk about, because it's insane how much authority they get to have just for no reason. She said she rebuked you, and your devil got stirred up, and you done shot her. It was the devil.
So here's my assessment of that. And again, by no means am I any kind of expert on mental health. I'm barely an expert on my own mental health. I think when I go through his background and the issues that he had in the different departments he had been bounced around from, he was a drunk. He had like 2 or 3 OWIs. Like, he had a bunch of problems. He was an honorably discharged military veteran. That can create its own set of issues. When you have 2 individuals that have mental illness and you put them together and they both have something that can be deemed dangerous, it is a recipe for disaster. So even if I was to engage in how horrible that situation was and people get really angry about it, like, what are we going to do in Wisconsin? Y'all are not going to Illinois to like protest their state legislature so that the state of Illinois has a better process for selecting officers. We can learn from it. We can be terribly sad about it. Yes, we can get emotional about it. But at the end of the day, I trust the people in Illinois. I think it was in Springfield, Illinois, somewhere in Illinois. It's 200 miles from Chicago, which technically any city that's 200 miles from Chicago and Illinois doesn't even really matter. I mean, no offense, but Illinois is literally Chicago and then Cairo. Cairo, Illinois symbolizes I'm done driving through Illinois. Illinois is no more. So there's only really 2 cities in Illinois, if you ask me. So we can get angry and get upset about it, but like, ultimately, we're not going to do anything about it. None of y'all are going to write any letters to the Illinois state legislature saying you all need a better process for how you select police officers. I trust the people in Illinois, especially the folks in Chicago, to be able to rectify that situation so it doesn't happen again.
I understand. Okay. I understand. I think that the rhetoric is just, it's important. I mean, I know we have it all the time, every time the situation does happen, but I think it's good to talk about it because you don't know what can come from that rhetoric. You know what I mean? And I feel like when it comes to, like, you know, police or what you should and shouldn't do in regards to letting police in, I don't think it's fair to blame or not blame. I'm not saying that you're blaming, but to like be like, hey, well, you should have just did this better. Like, oh, it's kind of like the idea of like, oh, well, men suck. And then it's like, well, you should have picked better. No, maybe men should just be better. Maybe the police need to just have better reform. Maybe you guys need to test these mofos out.
Right.
You know? Some type of cognitive something, because clearly people are not right in the head. And it's expected for some people in the public to not be right in the head. That's why you need to be trained up and figured out if you can handle that.
We need more officers. I know this is a real generic statement, but we need more officers that that have actual lived experiences in the communities in which they police. We do. We know that makes a huge difference. If the officer went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in this neighborhood, they grew up in this neighborhood, their mama, their grandmama, their cousins, their sister, and their brother, their uncles all still live in this neighborhood, and they are connected to that neighborhood, and they police that neighborhood, they can have a rapport with the people. Like cops, there used to be a time where cops would see kids grow up, and they see a 5-year-old, like, hey, don't do that, 5-year-old. And then the 5-year-old turns 15 or 16, and they get their driver's license. And the cop pulls them up and says, I remember when you were 5. Slow down, young man. You're driving too fast. You know what I mean? Like, there used to be like a community connection with our police officers. Now it's not like that. And so there's something that we can do. Like, we have power in our hands. We can encourage our young people that are very dedicated to Milwaukee, and families and communities, very dedicated black folks. Hey, maybe we should encourage some of our family members to become cops, but we don't do that. That actually could really solve the problem. But we telling black kids, what we telling black men to do this week? Still carpenters and HVAC plumber electricians? Is that what we still doing? A welder?
But what does it do if these black, potential black officers, what does it do when they become that? Like, okay, now are we implementing the community the community mindset with them, or are they being converted into what a cop, mindset is? I
think it depends on the individual, and we trust that the screening process will weed out people that wouldn't be good at the profession. But the Samuel Sharp situation is a good idea. A local cop that grew up in that neighborhood might have known Samuel Sharp before he went into the military, might have known him his whole life, might have known the dude had some issues. A local Milwaukee cop that was familiar with that area and probably familiar with him would have saw that same thing that those Ohio cops saw, and a local Milwaukee cop who's familiar with the neighborhood would be like, oh, that's just Sam. He likes knives. He's fine. He's just practicing his jujitsu. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different perspective. I can't even be serious. All right, I'm going to take a break, come back. I got a letter from jail. So it's a guy who wrote us like a couple months ago. I read his letter. He said he appreciates me reading the letter, and that's somewhat my fault, because when you read the letter, then they're encouraged to write another one. But so I'm going to read it at some point. I hope I can read. I think his name is Monty. Monty, I hope I didn't mess his name up, because he might come out of jail angry I messed his name up. Brother that wrote me a letter from jail, I'm going to read it. So I read it this morning. He actually sent it a while ago. It's been sitting on Kyle's desk for a week. But it's crazy, because in the letter, he's like, what do we have to do to get Joe Biden to drop out the race and have Kamala run? So the jail man predicted the current political situation we're in. But then at the end of the letter, Savanna, the brother's like, oh, if you have any questions or you want to talk to me, call me. And he leaves a cell phone number. Brother, if you got a cell phone in jail, just call us. Like, how do you have a cell phone in jail?
No, they be living it up in jail. They do. They be having phones. They be on TikTok, on live, everything.
It's like, here's my number. Just call me.
They even got a dating service via TikTok that you can sit up. I mean, they go crazy. They're enjoying it.
Don't say that. But he's been in jail for a really long time, because the first letter he wrote us a couple months ago. Okay, I got to take a break. My first segment, look what time it is, Savannah. My first segment is supposed to be like 11 minutes. Y'all got me over here talking too much. I got a lot I got to discuss. I still owe y'all a conversation about Project 2025. I do want to talk about the referenda that are going to be on your ballot August 13th. Here's what's crazy. The Republicans snuck these 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot on August 13th, because most of us don't have anybody to vote for on August 13th, okay? You got to vote August 13th, and let that be your trial run for your vote in November. So we got to go vote August 13th to vote no on these 2 referenda. I'm going to talk about that too. I got a lot of ground to cover and not a lot of time. The Truth with Sherwin Hughes will be right back.
More of The Truth with Sherwin Hughes is next on 1017 The Truth, The Truth app, and 1017thetruth.com.